Hi everyone. I guess we are reaching the end of 2018. So season's greetings and a great year ahead. This is my 34th dish, and I wanted to keep this for the year end as a special. People have asked me what is it that I really want to make as a special dish in Bordo's kitchen, and this is the one I'm going to make today, which is called Sikandari Raan. There's a wonderful story behind this, a legend with regards to history, which I'll narrate as to why it's called a Sikandari Raan. But typically, Raan means the leg, the hind leg of a goat or lamb. Now, what I'm making today is goat meat. That's what traditionally is made. So let me show you what the Sikandari Raan looks like. That's the whole leg of a goat. I procured this in Hong Kong. My guy is Iqbal. I've been buying from him since 2000. So I'm going to marinate this for about 24 hours, and I'm going to then cook it on an oven. Now there are three or four types of cooking this, right? The most exotic is called Patrani Raan. Patthar is a stone. So basically the grill, the slate stone is used as a grill. It flames up and then it's cooked on top. That's called a Patrani Raan. And of course there's traditional tandoori, or you can even grill it. And I'm going to oven it. I'm going to cook it in the oven, right, after 36 hours and I'll take you through that process. The marination is very important. You're going to do the marination today, and I'm going to come back tomorrow, which is 24 hours from now, and I'll show you the cooking. Now, let me show you what the marination is going to be with. So here's my marination. Of course, I've got about 4 or 5 teaspoons of ginger and garlic, which I make at home. That's a ginger garlic paste. This is raw papaya. This is for tenderizing the meat. There are various ways to tenderize it. You can also beat it a little bit, but it's called pounding. I would prefer using this raw papaya. It's a wonderful marinade and tenderizes the meat. I've got 2 tablespoons of Fennel seeds, which is soft, 2 tablespoons of Cumin seeds, about 8 of Cardamom, and about 3 or 4 pieces of cinnamon. What I'm going to do is, this is going to go into powder. I'm going to grind them together, and this will go as part of the liquid marination. And of course, I've got yogurt, which is again a tenderizer, and I've got Garam Masala, turmeric, and Kashmiri Chilli. So all of this will go into the marinade, which I will show the marination as the next step. Now let me tell you the story behind this. It's a history, and the best ever Sikandari Raan I have had was in a place called, it no longer exists, I believe. It was in the Oberoi Hotel in Delhi, a restaurant called Kandahar. And the same Kandahar is in Afghanistan. Now this is a history, and it's a beautiful, fascinating history and story as to why it's called a Sikandari Raan. For those of us who delve in history, I'm very interested in history. In 326 BC, Alexander the Great invaded what was then undivided India, the northwestern part of India, which was then ruled by a king called Porus. And Porus's army was at least 10 times bigger than Alexander's army. And they met, the battleground was on the river, by this river Jhelum, which basically flows through mostly Pakistan and partly into India. And Porus's army was kind of segregated on both sides of the Jhelum, and of course Alexander was attacking from the west, right? And what Alexander did was he flanked Porus along the river and cut him off from his army on the other side of the river, and were thereby able to defeat Porus. It's a fascinating story, and it's history, it's on history story. And that's actually the term flanking attack that we mostly use in marketing, comes from that particular battlefield, which is basically idealized by Clausewitz in his book, Art of War, right? Now, at the point of conceding defeat, Alexander asked Porus, how would you like to be treated? And Porus responded back by saying, like a king. And thereby Alexander gave back his sword, and he never conquered him, and he went back. Now that's this history. Now the legend is that night Porus hosted a dinner, Alexander the Great, and prepared this. And that is why it's called Sikandari Raan, because Sikandar was the name, the Urdu or the Hindustani name of Alexander the Great. So that's the dish, that's the story, that's the legend, but history really is true. So that's the legend, and that's what I'm going to cook today. So let's come back and take you through the marination process. Hi, so now it's the marination step, right? So I'm going to marinate it. I'm going to take you through the marination process. The first step for marination, if Julie can focus on my meat here, is to basically make up slices. You know, I'll kind of take a sharp knife and make these slices so that the meat soaks in. I'm going to just soaks in the marinade, yeah? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm wearing gloves because I'm going to use my hand to do the marination. So I have kind of serrated the meat on both sides. The first step to do is I'm going to put the oil, right? I'm using mustard oil. So the first step is to put a little bit of mustard oil in there and kind of soak it up with the mustard oil a little bit as I go in. Yeah, so I'm going to soak this up with mustard oil on both sides. Okay, so I've serrated it. I've put the oil properly soaked in. The next step is to put the salt. So I'm going to put the salt in my hand and I'll basically dab the salt on both sides. So this is the hard work part of making this dish, is this whole marination process, right? Because cooking is just one step of kind of putting it in the oven. So I've dabbed with salt. Now the third step of the marination is to now put the ginger and garlic paste, which I'm going to just put it inside the bricks as well as on top of the meat. So I'll put it in the cuts. And you can be liberal with the ginger and garlic because that's what gives it the whole beautiful flavor, as well as the it tenderizes the garlic in the meat. All right, so I put the ginger and garlic. Now, just something that you need to be aware of. When you buy a roast like this to be roasted, try to keep some of these fat, because that's when you grill it, that fat comes out and it kind of cooks the meat much better, right? So don't clean up all the fat. Like you can see, there are some parts of it which I have retained. Now, with that gone, the last step is the wet marinade, right? So which is all the spices that I showed. So now I'm just going to put this on top and really drench it up with all the spices, and then keep it in the fridge for 24 hours, and I'll grill it tomorrow. Remember, when you grill it, it will ooze out some of these spices, so just be liberal with it. And I'm going to just put this on both sides. Well, now the wet marinade has also gone in. Now this is perfectly marinated, and I'm going to just soak it in this, cover it up with a cling wrap, and put it in the fridge for 24 hours. And then we do the simple, oven tomorrow evening, and we have a wonderful Sikandari Raan to go. So we'll come back and then take the last step, which is the oven, cooking it in the oven. That's the process. Thanks. All right. So we are in the final stage of the Sikandari Raan. 2 steps to follow. The first, I'm going to sear it. The plate has to be very hot, and I'll tell you the reason I sear it is, again, it's based on talking to people. I'm not a trained chef, right? Talking to people, when you sear the roast, irrespective of lamb shoulder or a Sikandari Raan, it retains the flavor inside, and it doesn't break away, because it's very light by now because it's 24-hour marination. So I'm going to sear it. I'm just heating up the pan. Now, the thing for searing is the pan has to be really, really hot, right? So I'm going to just let it heat up. In the meantime, let me just fire up my oven, right? So I've got here, so I'm going to do is light up the oven there and put it at 170 degrees, right? So while that's getting heated up, I'm going to go and sear the Sikandari Raan. Again, a little bit of oil, right? Because remember, that already has oil, and I'm going to now really heat up the plate. And I'm going to use my cooking brush to basically spread out the oil properly. And I really want it to be hot, so I'm going to just wait for 30 seconds or a minute or two for this. And it's a very thick bottom pan, yeah? So you typically sear in this. All right, this is really, really hot now, right? So I'm going to just sear the thing. So I'm going to use a tongue and my hand because it's almost 2 kgs, right? So I'm going to just do this. The front part, which is the first part that goes in, right? And then I'm going to sear at a very high temperature. right? I'm searing this, and all of this I'm going to basically put it back on this side. And I've taken this out about 3 hours back because you want it to come back to the room temperature. I mean, it's winter right now, but if it's summer, then you make the call as to when you want it. So this is done. So that's the one side is searing. I'm going to put it on high flame. I can get the beautiful smell that's coming up. And while my oven is getting fired up to 170, I would again use the tongue to reverse this. See, what you have seen now is the spices have clung on to the roast, right? Alternatively, if you didn't sear it, again, this is something I've learned. If you don't sear it and put it straight into the oven or the grill or, open fire, the sauces starts to ooze out, and that kind of leaves the meat dry. 2 reasons to bring, as it's searing, 2 reasons to bring the meat to a high temperature and the oven at high temperature, because you want even cooking. Otherwise, if the meat inside is still cold because it's kept in the fridge, you may get a very a texture of cooking that you wouldn't enjoy. Yeah. So this is searing. We'll come back before we put it in the oven. Okay, my mutton Sikandari Raan is seared well. So now I'm going to basically take it as it is hot, and my oven is already ready. So I'm going to put it like this, and I'll tell you what I'll do with this later. Okay, so something I will do as an add-in sauce. My oven is done at 175. I've actually made it a little bit higher because it's slightly colder here these days. And this is ready to go. My suggestion is to put it on level 2 so that it does not get very close to the fire, because the fire is coming from down, up there. And as soon as I close this, I'm going to set my timer to 30 minutes. And every 30 minutes, I will come back and rotate it for every 30 minutes. Right now, how long does it take? Now again, I'm not a trained chef, and this is a hobby that I kind of practiced over the years. So I asked a lot of people, and some said that the rule of thumb for people like us who are not trained cooks, let's put it that way, I wouldn't call myself a chef, is for every 500 grams to 450 to 500 grams, it's 30 minutes. That piece of Sikandari Raan is about 2 kgs, right? It's about 4 catties. So it's about rough. So I'm going to do 30 minutes each. So roughly for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's how I'll go. So I will check 30 minutes later, flip it over, and then make a call. All right, 30 minutes up. So I'm going to do this, switch off that, and this is the first flip. I'll show the first flip, but after that, it's very, very hot, mind you. After that, I'm just going to do it. I won't come back online. And you have to be very careful with this now. There you go. So I flipped it. Now this is the side. As you can see, the meat is kind of, coming together, and it's just beautiful. And this is because when you sear it, that helps, right? So now I'm going to put it back for another 30 minutes. Right. So I'm going to keep it here. Okay. So there it goes in. Put my timer to 30 minutes. And I'm going to come back now when this is cooked. All right. And I dress it up. So that's what I'll show you what I do. All right. Now, while that the Sikandari Raan is happening out there, you remember this where I kind of seared the raan? So I've scrapped it. I heated this again, scrapped everything, and I've got this here, this one, which is kind of the the juice that came out of the raan as I was searing, right? So here I have a little bit of oil with this is mustard oil again, because everything is in mustard oil. So I'm going to do is put a little bit of, this is finely chopped, like 1/4 of a red onion, finely chopped, and 1 green chili. You can put more if you are into, make it like, hot, and this will be a side kind of dip, if you will, right? So I've got that sauce goes in there, and I'm going to now lower the flame, right? And this has been cooking, so I'm going to just switch it off. I'm going to put a little bit of cold water. Don't ask me why I'm doing that. I'm going to put a little bit of cold water. What it does, it kind of cools down the spices, and yet it kind of simmers it. This is done, right? And then I'm going to put this into a plate. This is the one that will go as a side complement. You know, this is done. Now with this, what I'm going to do, the last step is to put a little bit of lime juice there, or lemon juice, sorry, my mistake, and just stir it. Hi, so we are ready to serve the food. So I'm just going to go in and take this lamb and put it here. Right, so this is it. So what I'm going to do now in the next step, this is all set up. Now the next step is basically to cut it into sizes and dress it up with the last step, which is the onion, which I specifically learned from one of the chefs in Bukhara who taught me how to do it. So that's the last step. So I showed you the dip which I made. Now the most important thing is how you dress it up, right? And this is something that somebody at the Bukhara had actually showed it to me, which I mentioned earlier. So here it is. We've got onion, very thinly sliced onion, and I put it on an ice bath with vinegar, right? So I've drained the water. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just put it in this piece of paper towel, and this is just to drain the water, and I'm going to just put it back into this, and then and this is chaat masala, by the way, right? I have chaat masala at home. With chaat masala, take a spoon of it and just sprinkle it. I'm going to put a little bit of salt, not too much because the meat already has salt. This is what goes as a decoration to the. So do this. Hi. So the last step, I have basically taken the meat out of the thing, the Sikandari Raan. So that's the bone piece. It's all done, and this is and you just sprinkle it liberally on top of it, and the rest we can put it on the side, and it's going to be a beautiful flavor, the chaat masala, and that's it. That's your Sikandari Raan in the name of the famous Alexander the Great. For the first time, supposedly the legend says cooked by Porus, and this is the last dish. This is the last dish from Bordo's kitchen for the year 2018, and we'll continue in the new year in 2019. A happy new year and a wonderful season's greetings.